We continue now at the top of Daf Samech Gimel Amid Beis Mesechet Kesubos. This is Kesubos Daf 63b. The Gemara on the previous summit had a machlokas in terms of what is the nature of the rebellious wife in the Mishnah. One opinion was she's abstaining from having relations with her husband. The other opinion is she's abstaining from doing the tasks which she is supposed to do for her husband. And the Gemara asked from a brisa because the brisa talked about the rebellious wife and talked about a woman who is sick, who is rebellious. So we can't be talking about work in that situation. We must be talking about tashmish because, as the Gemara here says, El Laman Damar Mi Malacha, the one who says the rebellious wife is rebelling by knocking Chola Bas Malacha. You think a sick wife has to do work for her husband? That doesn't make any sense. The brisa clearly is talking about a rebellious wife who's not having relations with her husband. And so the Gemara says, you're right, everybody agrees that if she abstains from tashmish, that for sure is considered a moredis. That's not the subject of the machlokas. Ki pligi, when are they arguing? Mimalacha, they're arguing if she's abstaining from doing the work, is that considered a moredis? Mar savar mimalacha lo have a moredis. One says abstaining from doing work doesn't make one a moredis. Umar savar mimalacha nami have a moredis. The other one says, no, malacha also, abstaining from malacha is considered moredis. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Kufa, returning to what we said above, Hamoredis al Bala, if one is a moredis, she rebels against her husband. Pochsen la michsubasa, Shiva dinarim b'Shabbos, we deduct from her ksuba 7 dinarim each week. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shiva tarpikin, Rabbi Yehuda says we deduct 7 tarpikin. Rabbi Oseinu chazru v'nimnu, but our rabbis, they re-voted on this issue and they decided sheyehu machrizin olah arba shabbosos, that instead what we would do is we would announce for 4 weeks in a row, zu achar zu, one after the other, v'sholchin la bezin havayodas, and the bezin would send her the following message: you should know she'afilu ksubasa ichmei mana, that even if your ksub is 100 mana, hifsarata, you will lose it out if you continue this rebellion. Achas li arusa nesua, whether you're betrothed or married, afilu nida, afilu chola, even a nida, even sick, even a woman who's awaiting yibum. And the Gemara says, Amar le Reb Chia bar Yosef l'Shmuel. Reb Chia bar Yosef says to Shmuel, Nida bas tashmishi. Well, how could you put Nida in this list? She can't have relations anyway, so how is it that she's rebelling? And the Gemara says, no, Amar le said to him, like we said on the previous summit, Eino doma mishi yesh lo pas besalo, l'misha ein lo pas besalo. There's no comparison, one who has bread in his basket with one who does not have bread in his basket, meaning to say, it's a different level. One level is to be a Nida, but it's much stronger when the woman actually says she's not going to have relations with her husband, and that is considered a rebellion. And Rashi over here says, Chazru v'nimnu, again, they re-voted on this issue. Shelo Yeshua salifchos ma'at ma'at. They said, no, you don't do this situation, this delay situation where you reduce it little by little. Eliyaf sidu a kol ksubasa, rather you make her lose the entire ksuba, le'achar b'shabasa shel hachraza, after the 4 weeks of making this announcement regarding the fact that she's rebelling. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rami bar Chama says, Ein machrizan alela b'vatei knasiyos u'v'vatei midrashos. When we make these announcements about her, we only make it in the shuls and in the beis medrashes, but we don't make it out in the streets. Amar Rava says, Deikonami, we can bring a proof to this as well, to Katani, because what did it say above? It said Arba Shabbosas, 4 Shabbosas, zu achar zu, one after the other. On Shabbos, people are not on the streets. Shema Mino, you see from the phrasing that indeed we're talking about announcements in the beis knesses and the beis medrash. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rami bar Chama says, Pa'amayim sholchin lami bezin, we send her messages 2 times from bezin. Achas kodem hachraza, 1 time before we make the announcement, v'achas la'achar hachraza, and 1 time after we make the announcement. And the Gemara continues, Darish Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda darshan halacha k'Rabosenu, the halacha is like the Rabosenu, meaning the halacha is that we do it in this fashion of these announcements, and then we deduct her entire ksuba. Amar Rava says, Hai burcha, this is an absurdity to say that we paskin like the Rabosenu. Amar le Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, so Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said back to Rava, my burcha say, why is it so absurd? I know I'm Risa Nehile, I'm the one that said it to him. Umishmei de Gavra Rabba, I'm Risa Nehile, and I said it in the name of a great person. Umanu, and who is the great person who said this, that the halach is like Rabosenu? Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, it's like Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina rather was the one who said that the halach is like the Rabosenu. And the Gemara continues, V'iyu kaman savar. Now Rava, who did he hold like? Ki ha di itma Rava amar Rav Sheshes, it's like what was said. Rava said that Rav Sheshes said, halacha, that the halacha is nimlochin ba, that we decide with her, we consult with her. Rav Huna bar Yehuda amar Rav Sheshes, and Rav Huna bar Yehuda says that Rav Sheshes said, halacha ein nimlochin ba, the halacha is that we do not consult with her. And Rashi over here explains, V'iyu kaman sava, Rava damar burchi kaman sava, Rava who holds that it's absurd to paskin like the Rabboseinu. Who does he hold like? And he holds nimlachin ba. So there were two versions. Either we consult with her, meaning mashin eskita, we delay giving the get, umachzirno lesha tachzer, but we try to get her to retract her behavior. Uvesoch kach, and during that time, pochsen miksubasa, we deduct from her ksuba, shiva dinar and b'shabbos. Again, you just do the deductions of 7 dinar and b'shabbos. It's not that you give her these warnings and then she loses the entire ksuba. And even according to the other version, so we're not nimlachin, but we don't necessarily consult with her. But again, we do apply these deductions. And the Gemara continues, Hechi damya moredis. What exactly is this case of the moredis that we're talking about? Amar Ameimar says, Da amra bo'inole. It's talking about a woman who says that I want him, meaning I want to marry him. Umitzaranale, but the reason why I'm rebelling is I just want to call him pain. I just want to cause him pain, meaning there was some kind of dispute that she's angry at him. That's the situation of a moredis. Aval amra moesalai, but let's say she says he's disgusting to me. I don't even want to be married to him. So lo kaifin Allah. So then we don't apply pressure to her. We don't force her to remain in the marriage. There he just divorces her immediately. Rashi over here says, Hechi damya moredis techofenosa demashin gito pochsen ksubasa. Meaning the Gemara is asking, what's the case of moredis where we force her by delaying the get and we just reduce the ksuba? So then we're trying to compel her to change her behavior. To amra ba'inole sheyesh lachufa yedei pchisas ksubasa. Again, she's saying she wants to marry him. So then we're trying to force her. We're trying to compel her to change her behavior by reducing the ksuba. Aval amra moesalai. But if she says he's disgusting to me, lohuk v'lo ksubasa b'ina, I don't want him and I don't want his ksuba. So lo kaifin, we don't force her lasho, so we don't keep them married. Ela knows in lo get, he gives her the get v'yotza below ksuba, and she'll just leave the marriage without a ksuba. And the Gemara continues, Mar Zutra says, kaifin lo, no, even in a situation where she says he's disgusting to me, even there we force her, we try to get her to remain in the marriage. And the Gemara comments, Haveuvda, there was a situation like this, v'ichva, where they did force her, even though she said he was disgusting, v'ichva Mar Zutra forced them, compelled them, v'nafak minei Rabbi Chanina misura, and it came out of that marriage, Rabbi Chanina from Surah was born. So you see that it ended with something positive. A great person came from that marriage. But the Gemara says velohi, but that's not a proof for other cases. You can't use that as a precedent. Hasam siyata deshmaya have it there was a special siyata deshmaya, but it would not apply in other situations. And the Gemara continues, Kalse de Rav Zavid, the daughter-in-law of Rav Zavid, Imrida, she was rebelling against her husband. Have a tfisa chad shira, she was holding one piece of clothing that she had brought into the marriage as part of a dowry. Yosef Ameimar and Mar Zutra Ravashi, Ameimar and Mar Zutra and Ravashi, they were sitting. V'Yosef Rav Gamda Gabayu, and Rav Gamda was sitting by them. Yasvi Vakamri, and they were sitting and they were saying, Marda, if she rebelled, Hifsida below Sakayam, and she loses out on these worn clothing. Amarlu Rav Gamda said to them, Mishum de Rav Zavid Gavra Rabba, because of the fact that Rav Zavid is a great person, Machnefisula, you're trying to flatter him, meaning you're passing a halacha that's not true just to benefit him because he's a great person. That's not appropriate. V'Amar Rav Kahana, but Rav Kahana said, Mi boy Rava v'lo pashut. This was a question to Rava about the situation of the clothing that are part of the dowry. It was a question to Rava, and he didn't answer it. And the Gemara says, Ika Diyamri, there are those who have a different version of this story. Yasvi Vakamri, they were actually sitting and they were saying more that when she rebels, lo ifsida, below Sakayam, and she does not lose out on the worn clothing. Amar Lu Rav Gamda, and in this version, Rav Gamda said to them, and Rashi over here says, Kalse de Rav Zavid Imradov Yamra Mois Alai. The case over here is the daughter-in-law of Rav Zavid, she rebelled, and she said, my husband is disgusting to me. Have a tvisa chadashira, so she had this piece of clothing, mi'il echad, a certain garment, shechnisa lo bechsuba, which she had brought into the ksuba. Hifsida blo sekayam, and so they said she loses out on this that she brought in. Afilu begadeh shechnisa lo benidunyasa. In other words, not only does she lose out on the ksuba payment, but even the clothing that she brought in as part of the dowry, veshimum Allah biksubasa, and they valued them. They did an evaluation of the value of those clothing as part of the ksuba. Ve'adayin hablos kayamin, and they're still around. Tafsidosam, she's going to lose those clothing. Mi boy boyim ifsida blo seim lav. So then they said it was a question whether she loses that, and it was not answered. And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Dalid Amud Aleph.